Shirley here with Sirius Dallas Moon, and this is the fourth, fifth maybe episode. I'm basically documenting my experiences prior to the Magnum Mundi launch. Um, One of the things that I think about is labor, needing the money to money, and the fact that work cannot be rapey. And this pertains both to the Western economy or the economy in general or the world economy, but also to these issues that come up around this issue where we can have a megalithic corporation basically, and then because of the visibility, people like address it as a corporation, and then it, and I think that this authentic write-up is so important, and that transparency, that act of transparency, can bring about so much good. Like, I've been an open book since 2023, and definitely, as long as we abolish rape, it creates, how should I say that, a lot of potential for shared visions and shared ideas, um, and accrediting also, let's say, within which company, each and every person in their own kind of little enterprise. Um, I know, because the ideas are paramount, and we seem to experience a lot of the things together. So for me, when it comes to interpersonal meetings, I just become like a sphere. I'm elsewhere. I'm surely elsewhere. um, and the fears of those trainings that, and you know, the as, yeah. um, I'm probably one of the most difficult people to house and to communicate with on a grand scale, and it so happened that I'm connected to things on a grand scale. But this is so, I think, because that grand scale needs to be inclusive of. And I can see how each and every one of us dealt within reading the write-up of Caitlin. I'm like, I can definitely see how those themes appeared in my life. The prism is a device created to validate the hypothesis that white light is irrefutably made of component colors having different wavelengths. It's not something that occasionally changes according to moods or dates or even varies in pressures and temperature, but it's a fixed point of reference for all. Wow. Probably the time when I was contemplating about light. The world is essentially stable. We can rely on normal processes to have normal, appropriate outcomes. It is upon this fact that we have collectively created our understanding about the nature of reality and how to navigate the stormy waters of physical life. What we call common knowledge has its foundation in this stability. And normal intelligence then validates our personal experience by making connection between what we feel and what we know must be true. Nature does not amend its working principles to willy-nilly, and neither does a nature individual. What is, and it has a strong inclination to remain so. Existence itself arises out of a set of basic values which do not change unnecessarily. Through these principles, we are able to maintain a sufficient degree of control over our environment to ensure survival and accomplishment of our purposes in life. As years go by, the values by which we live, the qualities that enable us to expand our experience and develop knowledge, faith, and wisdom, the promise of exceptional achievement is made good through the application of remarkably fine judgment, which shows in the fineness we bring to the realization of core vision. Perhaps we can see that the prism image is a metaphor that speaks to us of how unity is one with diversity. Exactly what I was saying all along. Despite appearances, we may also come to see that in fact whatever we may find close at hand gives evidence to the same cosmic relationship. All is one, and ever has it been so. Note that I didn't look up the Sabians until the Magnum write-ups being composed, which was after Spica debuted in calendric terms. So finding the prism-induced rainbow as the final workings indicator given how Spica acted and what Spica means was just an insane spectral cherry atop all else. I also had a meditation on Spica, but I was doing a Spica talisman. For me, the election was not the best, but I was still meditating on the meaning of Spica. June 14th. Probably this entry is now from around noontime, Sunday, June 14th. I woke up having gotten to sink into a rare night of dream work and morning of contemplation since Lucian stayed with his caretaker. We are one full working day from launch, and much the write-up needs to be finalized still. Primarily the Gnostic myth of luminary section and the entire third act. What does Magnum do? Who should approach it and how? In area featured a tangent on Spica, the Mundis project and how the number 1111 binds them. I've been seeing 1111 quite a lot. Um, but it's better suited to appearing as an article of its own. When that's been finished, a hyperlink will appear in the title and notifications will go out. This morning's additional information is more directly related and fruitful, but has taken a lot of time to get there. Time I almost didn't have. Um, I know a lot of businesses were targeted in recent years And this is why I addressed it at the MK often level, because there were a lot of people that were dehoused because of those things, and susceptible to be trafficked and so on. And I really tried, and I hope that Sphere and Sundry will be free from being subjected to those things or having its clients subjected to those things. When I was in the airport moving from, it will be used to errate incoming text and elucidate some sort of landing, leading into writing the luminary conjuration. I wrestled with the fact that the world had become what seemed like a darker place since Tema Mundi had debuted in 2023. Talking heads espoused of what it felt like a timeline shift, like the veil has been pulled from the public eye. Things were used to file under conspiracy theory are now openly acknowledged facts. Elite PDF files, rings, the like. Yes, and by the way, when you tend to those things, then they try to make me go through the experience of a PDF file, from kind of like a gnosis perspective, and yeah. Um, I do not believe Tema Mundi was at all responsible for that. No, the issue was that this is what I told. I was speaking up either over the internet or in the message that I was sending Sphere and Sundry, and it can be that they got reply to another, but I was sending them also from my current email. So, and this was that she was dealing with fertility and birthing, and that was negating what she called cloned. Again, cloned is a very. But I told the story of how I wanted to. I thought that I'm mingling with the Dutch comment section, and then I was. I did not know that clown means clone, and and then I was having that emoji, and that was. I thought I figured it out, and then I heard like the emotion around somebody around me in the astral realm was like, and a couple of times I was told like, "You're not alone." The 100th time, "You're not alone." I was like, "I'm in the bathroom, taking off my pants, peeing, wiping, trying to wipe my own body," and it's like, um, yeah. So I do not believe Temamundi was at all responsible for that, but I saw in this project an opportunity to do it more to tilt the scales in goodness favor. This is another thing that I want to say. What? החלום שלך, זה היה בירושה החלום הזה. לא בהכרח, אני אדבר איתך אחר כך על זה. And then my mom comes up with the idea of she was seeing people having a farm. She said, "Oh, it's a very difficult physical work," and I'm like, "Well, not necessarily." I told her I'll speak with her later. Was that's the two farmers that abandoned their farms being business and allowed the animals the freedom to roam in all of their acres, and they began to develop the best food, the best meat, the best ecosystem with extinct species. And now again, I'm not saying whether to eat meat or not to eat meat. We need to have a soul withdrawal before we can even think of that. Um, so, and then there is the legalities, the maritime law. Wow, and that's why, and this is why, and here's the thing. I tried to call. I was podcasting. I tried to contact the Kathleen. I tried to podcast from another place, and then it was like, from my end, it was like no answer. And I was like, but that's the thing. It's not. And I was like, and I told Kathleen that she was up on, because the world symbolism and the theme of Mundi, she was up on something that was done probably in other contexts that were doing, that were creating what she calls clones. And I know, I think we have opposite Mercury signs as well, and I'm Chiron Gemini, so it makes communication even more challenging. I saw in this project the opportunity to do more, tilt the scales in the goodness favor. I actually feel that this is so. With Team Amundi, there was a couple of things that brought the litigations on human trafficking against the Mormon Church, the Church, and many other things that were in rituals. Basically, people call it the Lush farm or whatnot, but and I'm like, wait a second, orgasmic birthing can also, like, if somebody is having, I don't know, a car company, and we have compatibility with the creativity, and I'm like, I don't know, practicing orgasmic birthing practice, and I'm like, oh well, tell me what is your vision. I can try to think about that as I'm practicing, aligning my fascia and the microcosmic orbit breathing. Like, as long as it's not rape based. Uh, Ken, Ken, no. Hellfell coffee. I began to invest in coffee. And I was trying to find the most ethically sourced coffee in the world the other day. Um, I do not believe Timo was at all responsible for that. It's like you were tapping into birthing. That's the thing. And I identify that now because of the list of, and how it goes. It's list of emails, and then Yah heard what I've been going through. No. But I saw in this project an opportunity to do more to tilt the scale in goodness favor. Yet I was unsure of how much to stray from neutrality. I think I addressed it in the episode that I did on June. Um, I didn't want Magnum to bring us more of the world as it is or was. First of all, Magnum also brought litigations upon human trafficking, a Peter Ring drop. Um, it was, and this is what I feel more safe purchasing in Sphere and Sundry right now. Not because it's safe, but because it's keeping to invest in that bigger vision of changes in life as orgasmic birthing, the creative process as orgasmic birthing. and then this question, but that vision needs to be shared, and that is basically meaning abolishing any form of um, rapiness, and also being aware if people, let's say people that were ritually abused, they have altars that can um, I didn't want Magnum to bring us more of the world as it is or was. It is a better world for Earthlings. We had just recently introduced Lucian to a bit of classic Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and the night before Luminary Working watched an excellent documentary on Fred Rogers, American folk saint of the highest order. Um, you won't you be my neighbor? There's a part where he's called to give a post 9/11 at 9/11 on human trade is 9/11, and spoke about today concept like tikkun olam. Yeah, don't rape children, which I never. It's true to any religion and also to the pre-monotheistic religions, which I had never heard of before, meaning the duty to repair the world and creation. Um, okay, whatever. Uh, is it not a colonial notion now that Israel is having all kinds of enterprises in Africa? Asking as an Israeli. This was absolutely the unstable synchronicity. I needed to go hog wild on baking positive ends, and yet, if the pre-monotheistic tradition, let's just say, um, if the story of Abraham and Yitzchak was abolishing child sacrifice, then there was reasoning. This was absolutely unstable synchronicity. I needed to go hog wild on baking positive ends, the best of intentions, into the final luminary capstone to make it about kintsugi and salvation. Salvation is ritual, and the overcoming of all illusory separateness that kept human being from being the best one another and themselves they can possibly be, of healing with the rifts within us that keep any spirit from achieving its highest and best future in future lifetimes. Um, Alan Watts, become who you are. Marie Antoinette. You see, a broadcast in Israel and they try to portray the wife of Benjamin Netanyahu as Marie Antoinette. Um, Also, the name Lotus Eaters, the perfume Lotus Eaters came up, and it was very weird because I was dealing with being astrally raped, so like that eroticism was kind of like juxtaposed in like you know think about it, like you're suddenly in your infant phase and like Lotus Eaters. Like, wait a second. The elements were mixed weird. Gratitude and glory to the immortal soul of Fred Rogers. That night I was like, yeah, they come from there. The night I was in the shower, getting ready to go to the final ritual of Pisces new moon, I started listening to Become What You Are by Alan Watts on audiobook. Mentoring this because the entire Moody's project began on Mary Jane induced shower thought, and the whole thing felt very dull, full circle. So many things they can't even be properly documented. If you feel called to engage with Mundi's Arcana, that you read or listen to it, the title alone is okay. shower thoughts. Um, Third house sun here, that sounds like a fascinating practice. This final edition involved powdering the consecrated Magnum Mundi herbal matter, 30 rituals and 7 years in the making. This sprinkling it in the glass and pillars, candles, molds, which had been fumigated over which beeswax was poured. Oils and spirits met with herbs for the first time, filling the double six fumigated jars. It felt powerful and luminous. It was also the longest of any of the integrations, by far, lasting from 7:20 to 10 p.m., which began a period of final incubation before super quick turnaround to first attempted launch. This is beautiful. How do I save this for offline bookmarks? Bookmarks? I'll try. I don't know how to work with that. I just save it to my phone. Um, it's interesting. I don't know why I have the need to do that, because I've been feeling the energy all along, even without those pictures. But it's kind of like I need to see this energy. Like I need to understand this energy. um, I know what I'm asking for. Again, when we do something that this is also like for me, what I'm learning from that is that when we work with the astrology, and we do something that pertains to birthing of the world, it is something that is birthing. When we think about democracy, or when we think about that, every single sovereign in the every single person in the world is sovereign. And to be sovereign, we need to be like we cannot have rape and torture in the world and be. And how does that translate to legalese is something to meditate on, particularly with the rendition of maritime law. Um, but to me, it just feels safer to invest. What I mean safer? When I say safer, I mean aligns with my vision to invest in, whether it's an oil. I'll probably try to go for the oil first. I'll go into the current home, solicit a random song to play from a list of hundreds of liked Spotify singles. What began as I made my way through the exit gate, Man at the Garden by Kendrick Lamar, facilitated a surreal atmospheric drive which reminded me of the song that had begun playing by itself during Mars integration. Kendrick Lamar came up literally as I was recording. Um, Not only the terms of the bravado bordering on our bragado consciousness, which should otherwise be ignored, that both features, but because of the higher calling elements paired with the first verse of history, ending with a reference to the Garden of Adam and Eve. That was not paradise. Being punished for willingly consensual sex is not paradise. In fact, and the cool alarm is to get that video. But how many times have I mentioned that first decan of Aquarius, and renditing the stories of the fall from paradise, um, addressing the deacons by Austin Kabak. We had arrived. The work was finally done. Twice emotional stability, living installations of jewel luminaries, of sound body and tranquility. I deserve it all. Absolutely. Like minds, like minds and less enemies. The respect and the accolades. More money, more power, more freedom. Everything heaven allowed us, I deserve it all. Exactly, well, we just need to change Genesis so that you wouldn't be punished. And by the way, I have begun to do the renditions of that, because my intentions was pure. I believe you. And with every allure, how much temptation you endured. I'm waking up at 6 a.m. It's not temptation. It's abolishing rape so that we can get to our sense of embodiment. 6 miles a day, conditioning my wind. And I want to address that because when Uranus was going through my second house, I saw how, let's say, craving chocolate that is processed and GMO-ish is happening with malnutrition. And note to self, as I'm a little bit malnourished now. Um, conditioning my wind, writing words, trying to elevate these children. Pray for those who pray against me. Um, I remember in 23 when 7th of October strike, they talked about forgive them, Lord, for they know not what they do. And then they were talking about second coming of Christ to woman, and then I was like, okay, I'm not Christian. Y'all better abolish that ritual abuse Inquisition y'all code. Every reason why my ancestors sent me, your ancestor, you came, regardless of what your ancestors think about it. Like there are things my mother would completely be disapproving of, and probably my dad. And put a smile on my mama, good health and good karma. Yes, she deserves it all. A better life for my daughter. Yes. Made my son take it farther than his father. Yeah, he deserves it all. A close relationship with God. Whispers to me every time I close my eyes. He says, you deserve it all. It's true. But people talk about the issue of deserving. I saw people um, that you deserve it all doesn't mean you don't deserve to be raped. You don't deserve to be ritually abused. You don't deserve to be violated. And no, it's not happening because it's your karma. All of the talismans featured on the altar and the worn, and when we think about God as an egregore, then we understand the connection between our our access to choice, our nourishments, our choices within those, and the egregore. And when we understand that that is God, and that is connected with the trajectory of the planets and the spirit of the cosmos, and whether people call it the black sun or the etheric sun or um, and the fact that, like, hey, if we know that rape and torture cause dissociation to a person, why not cease and desist that from rites of passage, from life in general? That embodiment state of the astral can be reached through the natural tantric embodiment. And at around 2019, I was somewhat reaccessing that. I remember I was channeling the Pleiadians, and they said we are heart, or we're, and then there were attempts to um, how should I say that? The light will never be rapey. All of the talismans featured on the altar and worn throughout the Mundi workings are the handiwork of Sphere and Sundry collaborations with Tony Mac. Aside from the single Mars in Scorpio, Bloodstone, etched by Austin. I saw Bloodstone as well, probably around the time. And Magnum's incubation period. Um, Actually took a few days longer than the minimum lunar cycle to wait for the more appropriate astrology. I anointed myself and Austin for the first time with the oil on April 22nd, 2026. I'm going to have to look back to what happened back then. As the moon approached Jupiter and Tema Mundi ascending degree. It's probably around the moon. Probably was a lunar return for me. Um, Austin laid down afterwards about half an hour journeying while I picked white and yellow flowers petals off of the bouquets and finished the candles. White and yellow Jupiter moon. Also, what I think about is crown. Connecting with our roots, connecting with our crown, and trying to take that to, because the middle decan of Cancer, if we don't understand, if we think that there is such thing as sex work, we will never understand that decan, because it's the bigger sun, it's the microcosmic orbit birthing, it's the, and that's not for the elite, it's for every single birthing thing on earth. And look how the Egyptians built the pyramids that got this gnosis, and then they had to release the slaves. But that gnosis was not just for the Egyptians, it was also for what were previously the slaves. And they were all sovereign. This initiated a period of intense reorganization and restructuring, which dominated the coming period and also contributed to its launch being pushed back to June, almost a full year from where our opening timeline began. And also, we are at the precipice of 2027. Yesterday, I began to record the 2027. I was supposed to be at the airport today, but because of this launching, I stayed. And in 2027, we begin the list of eclipses that pinpoint the northern countries in Africa. I shared what Austin wrote of his vision in an announcement post on Instagram about the delay repassed below. I became a circle, curving back in on myself like the melothesiac man. There's a name that comes up when I think about this, and it's the person that taught us about Nelson Mandela. And I keep and and there is the notion that it's a better per se thing. And it's interesting because there were so many things about honoring the feminine that came through that. Um, how should I say that? I will wait for that. I became a circle, curving back on myself like the melothesiac man, coiled around the entire circumference of the sky. My curving circle stared at birthing and completed itself at death. I think one thing to say is that we don't build other people. We can say that we build each other in the sense that um, I also addressed it with my parents when it came to like the artist and manager relations. Um, this is why the discussions around orgasmic birthing and willing consent matter so much because it's a precipice of sovereignty. At at the point that the serpent bits its tail, I entered the space at the center. There was I suspended in a pre and post life womb cathedral surrounding by 12 stained glass windows. My light was differentiated by the 12 multicolored paints reflected what would and could be at every part of the cycle. He began telling me of this and we started joking about the cosmic fetus at the end of the movie 2001 Space Odyssey, the Star Child scene. And I like this. I like the energy of that. Saving it to my phone. It reminded me when I looked at the energy of gold. And right now I only have one gold ring that is serving as making it look like I am married when I need to. And people thought that I'm a gold digger in the spirit, And I'm like, no, the energy of gold is aligning the heart and preventing the the bipolarization of personality axis. And has a beautiful, the unification of sun and moon. And this reminds me of like the first buildings, the first structures. And look at that beautiful fetus. But it's just fetus. It's supposed to be a womb-like structure where the light permeates and the light of the outside permeates through the energy, through the nourishment. And the womb is a transmutation into life of both the outside and the inside. The ocean, maritime. The heart kept coming. And the heart was both used by trafficking cults and to denote our heart. I really love this version of the globe. The working room and magnum materia felt like an intact, luminous egg, glowing and protective. It felt warmer and in some ways lighter than Timan did. Yes, I agree. It felt more like home for me in particular. Like Timamundi felt artificial and profound, but also very real. It's like very grounded and then very unreal at the same time, learning to shift the timelines. And this one feels to me more wide, the way more. It's not contracting as much as the previous one did. It's a good balance between expansion and contraction. More spacious, more inclusive. I also felt like people began to learn more of the way to me, and then they were surprised that I was still insisting on, because so much is based on people being trafficked in the world. If the drug industry, the real estate industry, the people being dissociated, and the class division, which harms both the aristocracy and the classes that are considered the masses or whatnot. I can definitely say that I was on the precipice of both. Think about Israel being held accountable for particularly the sexual boundary violation. And and I can say that when I was in high school, they were proud of not being like the MI6. And again, I'm not saying that that's not true. Like, and then there was I was seeing a book by it was the head of Mossad that was between 2016 to 2021. And I'm like, that person knew when to go out of the system. I'm not saying he wanted to go out of the system, but this is on the in trickery you make a war that the Mossad is so scrutinized for. And they were child as well. But they didn't invent that. But I was also, the gnosis around Aries came about quite profoundly of how people sometimes need to create big house so that their problems are addressed. And then the fact that that big house prevents from their problems being addressed. Um, twice emotional stability. Of sound body and tranquility, I deserve it all. And then I became I became a circle carving back on myself like the Melotesiac man, coiled around the entire circumference of the sky. My carving circle started at birth and completed itself at death. The point where the serpent bit its tail, I entered the space at the center. There I was suspended in pre and post life womb cathedral, surrounded by 12 stained glass windows. My light was differentiated by the 12 multicolored planes reflecting what would be and could be at every part of the cycle. Whoa. There is also the light variations. Began telling me of this and started joking about the cosmic fetus. I really love this picture. The working room in Magnum Materia felt like an intact luminous egg, glowing and protective. It felt warmer and lighter, though I know now, months later as I write, we're encountering the soft velvet exterior leading to the Magnum's tough iron core. I actually experienced it the other way around. Um, Now, here is something that I think about. Because it's about birthing, it brings us from the point of origin. I was coming back to my own childhood memory, origin memory. And again, I mean, I have Rao in the fourth house. This is the second part of life. And the moon closer to Rahu. So closer, I mean, one sign apart, but closer. And Venus and the sun. So the luminaries, Venus, being a night sect, the unification of the sects. Okay, the moon and the sun, and one of my Deneb Algedi talismans was with the moon and the sun, and it was basically even a small wrapping of probably some chocolate that had both gold and silver, one side gold, one side silver colors. I was like, oh, that's the moon and the sun. It was upon my consecration of Deneb Algedi. The next few months were full of external and internal processing. A lot of the changes that had been looming started enacting themselves, and I kept caught up in the waves of dealing with them, rather than being able to work on the launch directly and exclusively as had been intended. Magnum's magic unflinchingly progressive. It starts in making changes in the real world right away, supporting its operations in picking up and reassembling the right construction of pieces. Like how it makes almost 10 yet never ending months to make a baby, and then you get home and all hell breaks loose. um, yeah, when my mother birthed me, she called it the explosion. Yeah, כן, דקה, אני אבדוק. Okay, lavender. Lavender. Bye. We had a complete managerial overhaul, so drastic reductions in sphere superflows overhead as multiple people left and others geographically departed to work in more streamlined remote fashion. Ma? Okay. Um, the Magnum things. People and peacocks. Remember at the start of this, ouch, how the third wheel disappeared to make way for the two love birds. Could they, so they could egg 2 cups of coffee spilled. um, that's one of the Magnum things. Yep, the third wheel disappeared before the two love birds.
תסתכלי איזה סריקה.
Oh,
הם לא נורמליים, היא רצתה להתאפס במיטה.
אוי, זה נתפס עליי.
לא צריך ככה או לא צריך?
לא, בסדר, תני לזה, תריחי את זה קצת. Yeah. Lavender and the scratch. A lot of people stuck in life in places and circumstances they don't belong. Oh yeah, because the world needs to change, and then we can be in those places. For example, to go from here to there. I tried in 2019. I tried the hatching from an unripe egg. מה?
לא צריכה לבוא. רציתי להגיד לך, הפסטרמה זה בשבילך, כי אני, יש לי בעיה עם בקר.
בסדר. And this is where we need to basically. Mama, I'm sorry, I'm recording. Thank you. Mama was like, "There's food here. There's food there. There's food there." A lot of people are stuck in life in places, circumstances where they don't belong, not meaningfully serving themselves or others. Magnum will kick that right along. Okay, then I will buy that. I can actually bought a traveling fork and knife, and for me it's like, yeah, I can. I don't think it would necessitate that in here, but I can eat from, I don't know, the food that people didn't touch on the plate and do something that's actually meaningful. The fact that I did that in university as well, in my entire degree, I was studying, aside of my studies, I was studying the different patterns, different type of workouts and fitness and food. All the while I was, in the beginning I was addicted to coffee because I was malnourished, and I'm gonna put that meat next to Sedna with lavender. Let's see what happens. Magnum will kick that right along, which can be absolutely result in unpended and needing to rebuild certain things. This is a feature, not a bug. Okay. You know what? The other day I was thinking, because I often feel Austin's energy around, and I was thinking to buy a moldavite, and I'm like, well, don't my life, because there's something stagnant in the life. And I remember that he said he's too sensitive for that. I'm like, I think I'm gonna need a moldavite, like to because I was looking for that thing that changes everything. It's like something, and it's like, well, that thing is abolishing rape. That thing is moving. Magnum will kick the right along, which can absolutely result in being unbended and needing to rebuild certain things. This is a feature, not a bug. If you know and come in open eyes from the outset, one of the big changes upon the horizon is going to back to our original